WCLN 1170 Radio and Cable Channel 16 are pleased to present We Should Know, hosted by J.W. Simmons, an upbeat, informative look at people, places, and issues facing our community. This education-based analysis of issues will remain positive and informative as we consider closely what we should know.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you for being with us today. We Should Know is on there. We're coming to you for Star Communications Channel 16, WCLN Radio 1170 AM on your radio. If you're driving down the road, listening to us, we appreciate that. If you're at home watching us on TV, we'll give you a shout out and a little wave. Also, the Sampson Weekly newspaper does a summation, kind of a reprint of the conversation today. It's not as full content as the show that you're listening to or watching, but it'll give you a summation of what we talked about. We encourage you to call a friend and stay tuned because we're talking about today something that is near and dear to everybody's heart. It's called energy, and we're talking with Kraig Westerbeek, hometown boy here in Clinton, North Carolina. Kraig graduated from North Carolina State University. A number of things that he's involved in now. He's a senior director of Smithfield Renewables, Hog Production Division, Environmental Affairs at Smithfield Foods. And we're really proud of Smithfield Foods right here in Clinton, employing about 1,700 people. So hold that position and do well at it. One of the most important things when I was looking at your bio, I thought I would mention too, is that you're chair of the Duplin County Health Board. That may be the biggest challenge I would suspect, Kraig, that you have. I want to quickly introduce Ryan Childress. Ryan, you're a Virginia boy, University of Virginia. Dual master's degree I noticed you've got there, and letterman for 4 years. This guy played football as a letterman for 4 years, University of Virginia. Question is, how's the game win while you were letterman up there? Were you up, down, or?
We did pretty well. I was in classmate of Matt Schaub, who's still playing in the Falcons. So we actually got a North Carolina's dear to my heart. We won a couple bowl games down in Charlotte against Pittsburgh and West Virginia in the Continental Tire Bowl, which is now the Belk Bowl. So
absolutely. And you ended up as manager of gas business development for Dominion Gas. It's pretty huge. We're looking forward for Dominion coming right through the northern part of Sampson County here and bringing some energy to us. Guys, what we want to talk about today is this whole idea of what I call expanding the food chain, if you want to look at it like that. But there's this effort that's been printed in local media here, and there's a lot of conversation about a meeting coming up August 15. Both you guys are in kind of different worlds in one way, but you're connected with a great leverage source in energy between gas, fossil fuel, and something that's now happening, and I'll open with you, Kraig, with the hog industry, particularly here in the area, and methane gas, thermophilic digesters. These are words you're familiar with for many years. I am too. Tell us what's going on.
Smithfield, and I've been employed with Smithfield for 26 years, primarily in the area of manure management and environmental affairs. First of all, I'll tell you, I want to brag on our industry. I think they do a fantastic job of what they do. We have a very good system in anaerobic lagoons and land application, and our farmers do a great job. It's heavily regulated. But for years, we've looked at how do you turn that manure into value beyond the fertilizer value that it's used for today. And the truth of the matter is it has energy value. When we bring in energy in the form of grain, whether that's corn or soybean meal, in addition to the nutrients, we're bringing in energy for those animals so they can grow and do well. The fact of the matter is, though, those animals don't use all that energy. And so some of it ends up in the manure. Obviously, we want to limit that as much as possible, but that's just the way it works. And so for years, as you well know, there's been efforts to say, how do we capture that energy? How do we turn that energy into value? And so, 20 years ago, Smithfield was looking at anaerobic digestion and capturing the gas that's emitted from that called biogas, which is 65% methane or 65% natural gas, and turning that into an energy source. So the opportunity to do that has been there. What has changed in recent years has been the economics of that. As you know, people are much more interested in renewable sources of energy. This is clearly a renewable source of energy, and so the timing has come together to say, this is something that we can do now, we feel like, and incorporate everyone in the pig industry, whether it's Smithfield, our contract growers, or anyone involved in that value chain can get value from that.
Ryan, when I think about what Kraig's just talking about, and we're talking the fossil fuel industry, and we're talking a lot of concerns about gases and oil and all this kind of thing, and depletion of the atmosphere and these kinds of things. And we talked a little bit about this off air, but it's almost like this is connecting something that was missing in the food chain. How does Dominion Gas, and how did you guys get involved with this? Did a light bulb just come off somewhere and go, boom, okay, we got to get something done with the hog industry? Kind of give us a little background on that.
Well, for Dominion Energy, we're always looking for ways that we can serve our customers. And Kraig mentioned this. Folks are always looking for renewable energy now. That's something that's really important, lowering their carbon footprint. And so we've been very involved with solar, wind, hydroelectric, electric generation. And so, on the gas side of the business, we're constantly looking for ways to deliver lower carbon energy to our customers. So, as we began looking at the opportunities around renewable natural gas, it led us to Smithfield. Kraig and I were able to connect based on some of the work they were doing. We have a lot of common geographic interests where our assets are, and so it just made a whole lot of sense. We're experts in the energy space. Smithfield's world class when it comes to the agriculture industry. We're able to link up, combine forces, and now we're really excited about these projects we have here in North Carolina and elsewhere.
Well, when I think about this, and we think about the idea, the conceptual idea, we've seen this happening, and you alluded to it with, for example, South River and Butler Farms and other places, pumping this energy not only to the point that they're running the hog operations, but they're dumping it back into what they call the microgrid as far as energy that can be pumped back out to other sources. Is this a bigger kind of thought process and a bigger potential when we look at it in its relationship to fossil fuel as opposed to, quote, electric energy sources?
Well, when you think about how electricity is generated, a huge part of the way we produce electrons for folks' use is natural gas, which is, very low carbon, very environmentally friendly.
Either that or nuclear.
Either that, nuclear is great, solar, wind, it's a portfolio approach. But, what Kraig and I have found here and what the industry sees is rather than trying to put a small, rather inefficient generator maybe on a farm site that's on a line somewhere that really can't efficiently serve customers, what we can do by creating renewable natural gas is direct that gas to a more efficient, larger combined cycle plant, runs more efficiently, creates more electricity more efficiently, and then use that for customer use. And so really the difference here is taking the existing infrastructure, partner with our growers and with Smithfield to create these projects that allows that gas just to become part of the overall natural gas footprint. And the beauty of it is it provides an economic resource for the growers, it provides environmental benefit to our community members, and then provides clean energy to customers across North Carolina and the East Coast.
Kraig, farmers have always been innovators, business people, determined, use other words if you want to, but they always get the job done. So how does this, do we have these kinds of things working now? Do we have generators that's actually producing the energy on farms to operate the farm?
Yeah, you mentioned a great example of Tom Butler's farm, and he's been certainly an innovator in this area, and I believe his goal has been to, of course, he can speak for himself, but to produce electricity for the grid. And we've got projects similar to that. I mean, if you go to Utah today, there's generators spinning, making electricity from this biogas we're talking about. It's really about efficiency, though, and that is, if you choose to go that route, you're using an internal combustion engine, you're using a microturbine to take that biogas, which is only 65% methane at that point, not 100% methane, and use those BTUs in that biogas to turn a generator or a microturbine and make electricity. Unfortunately, when you do that, you're only about 50% efficient at doing that because you have heat loss. As you know, you got a radiator on any engine, and that's really to get the excess heat or energy out. And so it's not as efficient as what we're describing, which is to clean the gas from 65% methane to almost 100% methane, and then put it in a natural gas line where then it can be taken out and used for any number of things, including electrical generation at a plant that might be owned by Duke Energy or Dominion or someone else, where they do that at a 90% heat recovery rate. So it is an efficiency. The other issue you have with generating electricity on a wide scale from biogas that can be collected is that the electrical grid was never really intended to pull electricity the opposite way of where it was going. So I would say, and you guys are in the electricity business, you would say they engineered their grid to take electricity to somewhere and not away from somewhere. And so if you
it's a delivery system.
Exactly. And so that just adds a level of complexity. It's not insurmountable, obviously. We have examples of folks that are doing it. We feel like this is a more efficient way to do it. And we also feel like it's a way that more farmers can be connected to the program, can get involved in renewable energy production.
So you've actually got farmers in the area, in our listening area right now, that's actually doing this with natural gas as far as a partner.
Absolutely. There was a couple years ago a project started just south of Kenansville over in our neighboring county in Duplin County.
Absolutely.
And I do live in Duplin County now, by the way, even though I'm a hometown boy.
Warsaw area
just
there.
Between Warsaw and Kenansville, yes, sir. That really helped us understand the dynamics. The name of the project was Optima KV. There was 5 farms, around 60,000 head of finishing, and they installed digesters on their farms, on these farms, and they started collecting gas from these farms, and it was routed through gathering pipelines to a central location that was actually located on a Smithfield piece of property with the natural gas pipeline already going across it. And they started cleaning gas and putting it into the pipeline. I would say that was a great example for us to look at in terms of this is a model that really works.
Take a break. We're going to come back in just a moment. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us today. We'll be back in a moment. Call a friend. We're talking about some exciting news in energy development and energy sourcing. We'll be back in one moment.
Experiencing slow internet? If you have a fast internet package, the problem is most likely your wireless router. With more devices using Wi-Fi, your wireless router may not be able to deliver the speed and coverage you need. We now have the leading solution to enhance your internet experience. Using small devices in a mesh network, these Wi-Fi appliances cover just about any size home so that all your devices can operate to their fullest potential. Whole home Wi-Fi from Star Communications. Get the most out of your internet connection.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you for being with us today. We're talking with Ryan Childress with Dominion Gas. We're also talking with someone that most of you may know, or at least you know the family. Kraig Westerbeek, and the Westerbeek family is well known in the ag industry, both in Duplin and Sampson County, and this entire area as far as that goes. Lives over in Duplin County. Kraig, thank you for being with us today. Thank both of you for taking time to talk about something. And there's an event coming up. I want to keep mentioning this, August 15 at the Agri Exhibition Center. You're welcome to come, talk, listen. There'll be a number of our community leaders and state representatives and congressional members. Rouser and others, I'm sure, will be there. And it's all about getting an idea out that is not necessarily new, but as you were talking about some of the details when we went to air, I want to pick up, went to break, I want to pick up on that as we come back. Kind of continue to explain that relationship that you were speaking to.
So I think when we left for break, we were talking about a project over in Duplin County that's been in operation now for 1.5 years, and it's owned by an entity called Optima KV, who we know real well and have been very involved in. And it was the first in North Carolina to kind of take this concept of making renewable natural gas instead of making electricity. That project, once again, just in review, took 5 farms, fairly large farms, and each one has a digester being a anaerobic digester being a vessel that the manure goes in. It's mixed and then as bacteria break it down, the gas is released, it captures that biogas. That biogas is then transported under underground pipelines to a central location that's actually on a piece of property that Smithfield owns, where the distribution line or transmission natural gas transmission line goes through, and it's cleaned to 99.5% pure natural gas. Obviously has to meet the requirements of the gas line. It has to be at least that BTU value. Has to be, it can't contain over a certain amount of oxygen or CO2 or those sort of things. But once it meets those requirements, it's put in the natural gas line with the other gas that's flowing through that line. You know, that project's been up and running about 1.5 years now. We've been watching it really closely, and we're involved with the folks there at Optima, and it's really been producing gas at a rate that we project, and that's the big thing. You know, when you look at this business case fundamentally, how much biogas, how much natural gas can you produce from one finishing animal? I mean, that seems pretty basic, but once you know that, you can start to look at the economic model once you know what that gas is worth, what all your capital costs are. And so that was a very good project for us to really pay attention to here in North Carolina. Now, simultaneously, in northern Missouri, out in Utah, we have projects that we're doing the very same thing. And so with all that data we're getting, we're starting to really understand that process, how much gas we're going to be producing, what the value of that gas is. The cleaning equipment is very expensive. The interconnection into the natural gas pipeline is very expensive. But we're seeing how we can take a number of farms in a given area and really leverage that really expensive gas cleaning equipment and injection over a large number of farms, and that's really the business model.
So I'm going to pose this question for both of them. I'm going to start with Ryan. Ryan, when you look at it from your seat from the gas industry, where do you see this going? And just give us I always like to look at a 5 or 10 year projection. If this continues to grow and have as much positive benefits, where do you see it from the gas perspective in 5 years and 10 years, and how will that impact the customer?
Sure. Well, we're very excited about this. I mean, Smithfield and Dominion have committed $250 million over the next decade to continue to develop these projects, and that's just a start. We believe that is seed money to this partnership. And one of the things I'd say when you talk about the relative cost of this, it is more expensive than commodity gas, but it's more valuable. And what I mean by that is when you look at the environmental benefits that this gas provides, methane's about 25 times more pollutive per unit of energy than carbon dioxide. And so what that means simply is that by capturing this gas that formerly was going to the atmosphere, and run it through the process, as Kraig talked about, upgrading it and making it 99.5% pure, and using that for energy conversion, you actually have a negative carbon impact. And so our growers not only are able to take what might have been somewhat of a liability to them, create a revenue stream, and make a really positive environmental impact on the community.
So basically, one of the things is they're solving a problem for a problem. I mean, if that makes sense.
I think that's right. I mean, you hear all the time about greenhouse gases and carbon reduction and global warming. I think what Ryan's alluding to is this is a negative fuel in terms of those things. So it actually has a negative footprint versus maybe some other sources of renewable energy even.
For farmers out there, Kraig, and I'll get this question, if I don't ask it, I've got to ask the question, for farmers, is this something that is financially feasible for the guy that's got, 8 or 10 hog houses? Hey, may have a couple of chicken houses thrown in. I don't know any talked about that, but with just hog operations, is it feasible for that person, or would you have to look at it from a sense of a collective before it's feasible?
You have to look at it in terms of a collection of farms in one area. I'll give you an example, and there's a lot of farms in Sampson and Duplin County, and that's really the strength of our economy, and we're all very proud of them. But one thing when you look at, I told you we've been developing projects in northern Missouri. They're very large facilities, singularly, right? So they're on one piece of land. It might be 150,000 head of finishing on one piece of land. That makes these projects a lot simpler because you have the economy of scale kind of built into your model already. The gas cleaning equipment, as an example, is several $1 million investment. The pipeline interconnect, in other words, interconnecting or tapping into a natural gas pipeline's several $1 million. It'd be very difficult for a small farm to participate in that just because that capital cost is so high. So our model here in North Carolina is to do that one time, but then connect farms in the area. And so we call those clusters of farms, and we've identified 10 or 12 clusters of farms in North Carolina that make a lot of sense. And so each farm would have a digester that hopefully the farmer would invest in. We feel like in our model we're providing a good return on investment to farmers by paying them for their gas, for the gas they produce before it's cleaned, and saying, okay, here's a contract, we'd like to buy your gas for the next 10 years. And that contract, if you look at their cost and how much gas they produce, has a very good return on investment for the farmer, something that as we've talked to farmers about this and introduced the idea, they've become very excited about it because it's a way for them to leverage assets they already have into additional income. And so that's the way we're presenting it to farmers. So you have their investment, and then you have Align, Smithfield, and Dominion's investment in the infrastructure to gather that gas to one point, the infrastructure to buy the equipment to clean the gas and inject the gas into the pipeline. And so there's kind of two sets of investments, but they're all really one investment.
So basically then, Ryan, this gets back to a significant rural economic development effort by both of these organizations.
Absolutely. I mean, my brother-in-law is a farmer. I grew up in southwestern part of Virginia, a very rural area. And what I'd say I know about farmers is they're some of the best business people around. They really understand economics at a very basic level. And what we found largely, and Kraig really leads the effort on this, is that when we take this to the grower partners, they're really excited about it. And what this allows them to do is partner with us to create clean, renewable energy at a good return for rural farmers. And that's really something that we love about this project.
And what you were talking about, Kraig, the idea of having kind of a contract relationship, it sounds a lot like the integrators that have contractual relationships with growers already. So this is something that will not be new to farmers.
Well, the contractual relationships that are in place today are a product of market forces. They're a product of economics, they're a product of banks and how lending takes place. So yeah, we have used that model in looking at what model, because that model has worked.
Absolutely.
And we've looked at using that model with regards to biogas as well. And so providing a long-term contract provides assurances to the grower or farmer that they're going to get money back for their biogas. And that's something their banks are going to require. And it's something that certainly helps when you're looking at making the type of investment we're talking about.
Would the challenge, or will the challenge possibly be where you're trying to get a collective of 8 or 10 or ever how many farmers to come together with that? Is there a place that a similar business model would be where there's this particular organization that represents 8 or 10 different farms that then can ladle the financial resources to get that pipe back to where it needs to get to deliver the results of the methane?
Well, the connection, the gathering pipeline connection would be our investment, and something we're talking to local landowners about to make sure we can make those connections back to a central point. I mean, certainly if farmers wanted to get together and they were adjacent and they wanted to build a common digester, I guess that could be an option. But our business model is such that unless you're a very small farm, I'm talking about less than 4,000 head of animals, the investment that we're offering here is a very attractive return on investment and very bankable.
And as we look at that, and as folks are listening to this, and it may be farmers on their tractor, we get a lot of folks that will call or send us an email and say, I heard you the other day and I missed part of it because I was turning at the end of the road or something. I don't know, but they're listening to this. They're trying to figure out how. and what they need to do and who they need to call and what is it a fit for me and what does that mean. They get the concept. I can pretty much assure you of that. So when we come back from this break, I'd like for you to kind of talk about that a little bit.
Look forward to it. Ladies
and gentlemen, we're going to be back in a moment. We're going to take another break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about how you can connect, who you need to talk to get the in-depth information you need to get in the place you need to be to benefit from this directly. We're back in a moment.
You come out to replace a bad sensor, and that adds a 5-year commitment to my contract, and you don't tell me? Here's your sign.
Switch to the sign that's keeping homes secure and customers happy all over the area. Security from Star Communications. We pride ourselves on fair pricing and quick, friendly service every time.
Somebody trying to break into this place?
Security from Star Communications.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thanks for being with us today. We're talking with Ryan Childress at Dominion Gas. And we're also talking with Kraig Westerbeek, and Kraig has found him a place with Smithfield Foods as, I guess, their renewables guy. I mean, you know, if there's anything that we can renew, it's how we do energy and how we work energy. We were talking about some of these ideas of farmers coming together in grids and that kind of thing, the financial resources, the technology, how they're going to find out how do I fit into that. As both you guys know, we got some pretty big operations and ag folks in the area. And some of these people are probably already dialed in. Some of them may be, I've got 5 or 6 farms as you talked about. Wonder if that's got anything to do with me. Also, I want to kind of dump into this segment, if I can, how this reflects and relates to other industry. As on break, we were talking about the idea of broadband and connectivity and fiber lines and so forth. There's going to be pipes in the ground that's going to be carrying this energy. There's also a need to be a way to have connection with fiber. There's a win-win situation here. Let's talk about all of those things.
Well, I think with regards to that, fiber optics, I mean, certainly we're not in that business, but if somebody understands what we're doing and they have and they do want, broadband or fiber optics, I mean, just understanding the connection we're talking about, trying to connect farms, that is a potential opportunity we could discuss. So if anybody's listening and that's their something they're working on, give me a call and we'll talk about it and we'll see whether there's some opportunities there. You know, when we went to the break, I think you were talking about how do farmers know, whether I can be involved in this and how do I get more information. Well, the first thing, we'd encourage them to come to our meeting, and I think it's 15th.
Yeah, August 15th.
So August 15th at the Exhibition Center at 5:30, and we're going to be really talking through a lot of this, and we'll have plenty of folks there. We'll be able to talk specifically about their situation or what have you. But generally speaking, you know, Smithfield made the announcement some time ago that we would like 90% of our finishing operations to be involved in manure energy projects over the next several years. Mm-hmm. And I think that was a big step, and it should show people that we're really not only interested in this, but we think there's a very good business model here. And so the way we're developing these, and we'll be talking specifically in a couple weeks about our first project, which is right on the Sampson-Duplin County line. And we talked about how we're really organizing this into clusters of farms. That would be the first cluster. Those farmers have already heard from us, and they'll continue to hear from us. But as we expand to other clusters that have been identified, that could be in other parts of Sampson County or other parts of Duplin County or other parts of Bladen County, we're going to be contacting farmers and say, hey, here's the opportunity. In the meantime, if there's farmers that are interested in knowing, hey, where am I at in that? Is my farm potentially, could be involved in this? Certainly they could give me a call or come on the 15th and we'll talk about that.
Both you guys look at and operate industries that's multi-state, I would dare say. I know Smithfield is international. Mm-hmm. How does what we're doing here act as an innovative model for literally the world? Am I pushing the envelope by saying that? No,
I don't think so. I mean, again, we sort of talked about this in one of the earlier segments, but customers and businesses, they're just completely focused on sustainability, and our companies are too. And so what we're doing here, and I think what this is an example of, is how we innovate, how we consistently look at our operations, look at our partners, develop new partnerships, and figure out ways to do things differently and better. You know, a lot of this is about community as well, right? I mean, Smithfield's a valued member down here in the community. Dominion's very honored and excited to be part of these communities. And so, again, it's when you talk about this partnership model and all the good things that go with it, it's really something we can all get behind. And I think for the energy side of this, you know, we're constantly looking at different ways to find the renewable natural gas, less carbon intense sources. And so, you know, talked a little bit about Smithfield goals. At Dominion, we've actually committed and we have a goal of trying to bring up to 4% of our system, the gas that's on our system by 2040 is renewable natural gas, which is a lot of gas. And what that'll do is provide you know, new opportunities like this for the agriculture community to create energy. But what it also does is it allows our customers to see a lower carbon footprint from where we start with the farmer to where we end with the user.
I think from Smithfield's standpoint, just to pick up on what you were talking about in terms of carbon footprint, you know, back in late 2016, Smithfield was the first protein company, major protein company, to announce a carbon reduction goal. Mm-hmm. And so we announced then that we'd like to reduce our carbon footprint 25% by the year 2025, which now is only 6 years away. But when you look at the carbon footprint for Smithfield, and it actually starts with the growing of the grain to feed our animals, sure, and it ends with the consumer's consumption or disposal of our product, mm-hmm, that they purchased. And so when you look at that entire chain there, 40% of our carbon footprint is associated with methane emissions from manure management activities. Mm-hmm. And so clearly, if we're going to be successful at driving our 25% reduction goal, we have to address those emissions. And we found that this is a way to do that has profitability built into it, and also sustainability, not only for us, but for consumers. And so no matter where you are with regards to your beliefs on carbon reduction and global warming, what we can't separate ourselves from is it's important to Smithfield's customers, and so therefore it's important to us.
So when you look at it, and the two things that come to mind immediately is solar and wind, and you see a lot of activity, particularly with wind in California and other states. We look at this and we look for the actual impact. This possibly has more impact than a number of those put together.
Well, I'd say, you know, it's really about a portfolio approach. We need natural gas, we need nuclear, we need solar, we need wind, and we need RNG, renewable natural gas. Mm-hmm. And you know, the great thing about this product, when you think about how we deliver energy to our customers, is this is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. I mean, Smithfield and the growers are constantly running their operations, so it's truly a sustainable circle, right? You know, you always have that gas coming on the pipeline.
It's not dependent on the weather.
It's not. I mean, obviously, you know, there's issues if there's extreme weather or something that can interrupt production. But that's the great thing about natural gas is it's there when you need it.
The more you get into this, Kraig, do you see a way that farmers can sit down and calculate this and see a positive benefit on an actual calculations scientific way, where they can calculate how many hogs they got, what the lagoon capacity is, because that's one of the things they're going to want to know. So at the end of a year, based on the calculations of carbon credit, methane emissions, I've got this much potential either of savings or income benefit.
That's very easily calculated. I mean, clearly when you're particularly when you're measuring the biogas or the methane leaving the operation, mm-hmm, you know what you've saved. That's right. And in fact, what you've cut in terms of what you've typically been in emissions. I would tell you that in our model, you know, farmers would have the option of covering their existing lagoon or putting a new digester, which is smaller and is mixed and covered on their operation. We certainly feel like there's advantages to the latter in many cases because it is complete mixed. it would produce more gas, so it'd be more efficient, and then their existing lagoons become more tertiary or secondary treatment. They're still in use, but obviously the solids loading and that sort of thing has been greatly reduced. But farmers could choose either option, and you see both already throughout the country. In northern Missouri, we have a lot of covered lagoons, and so that optionality is there. But at the end of the day, yes, you'll be able to answer your original question, farmers will be able to easily calculate, what kind of emissions reductions they've had with regards to greenhouse gases or carbon reduction.
We think about natural gas, something always comes to mind. It's not only just for big industry and maybe getting that renewable gas back into the line, but that also could be a big benefit to rural electric cooperatives, to even Duke Progress, this for-profit entity. This could be huge for everybody.
No, it really is a win-win situation. I mean, when you think about North Carolina, generally eastern North Carolina, there's a lot of growth going on. And when you look at industrial growth, one of the things that you have to have is energy. And so there's going to be need for more natural gas. This is a source of that. And so it's great for our utility partners. It's great for our industrial partners. And then, for home users as well.
When we look at this, also you mentioned a while ago, we talked a little bit about broadband, but local communities, counties, Sampson, Duplin, all these counties have got economic development committees and commissions that they're working with, trying to entice industry into the area that's not maybe directly ag-related. Does this bode well to explain to an industry coming in that, look, we've got a source of natural gas here that can not only help you with the production of whatever it is you're making. If it's BMWs or Volkswagens, it don't matter, we can put you to power it.
And it's not just that we've got natural gas available, it's that we got renewable natural gas available. And to some businesses, that's very important. I mean, we're starting to get calls regularly about, hey, is there renewable natural gas available? And that might just be important for that particular industry to make their product not using natural gas, but renewable natural gas. And so if you have that available, I absolutely think it can be a positive. But when you look at economic development, understand you're also looking at the amount of money that we're looking to spend, the capital we're spending here in eastern North Carolina. Ryan alluded to, our commitment to $250 million kind of be as a starting point for these type of projects, and understand that's coming right into our local economies, and it's really part of a business that's already here.
We're going to take another break, and we're going to come back and talk a little bit about that and then some other things in our last segment. Ladies and gentlemen, we're coming up on our last segment here. Tune in, call a friend, record, do whatever you need to do. We'll be back in one moment.
To get the most out of your electronic devices, you need a strong internet connection and a protected home Wi-Fi network. You need high-speed internet from Star. Star has the fastest, most affordable high-speed internet service available for all your devices. We have no long-term contracts or high-pressure sales. Our service speaks for itself, and switching is hassle-free. We take care of everything with free installation from a local company. High-speed internet from Star. Internet at the speed of life.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We Should Know is on there. I want to thank you for being with us. I want to remind you also, continue to send us those emails and suggestions for shows. Also, comments on the show we're doing today or previous shows is welcome. We should know edu@gmail.com. That's we should know edu@gmail.com. We're talking to Kraig Westerbeek. We're talking with Ryan Childress. Ryan, you're with the Dominion Gas folks. Kraig, you're following the family footsteps in the ag business. And I think it's been good for both of you guys. This whole industry, but kind of to encapsulate this last segment, I want to get involved and make sure folks understand, I guess, the process of what we're talking about. We touched on it a little bit in the beginning, but kind of as we move toward closure, I want to make sure they understand we're talking about something that is literally a part of the food chain. We're just plugging in and using all the elements of that food chain.
I think you're right. So when you think about these projects, and you might ask yourself, well, how do you get energy from a hog? How do you get energy from these pigs? Well, it really starts when we bring in a load of corn, or a farmer brings in a load of corn to one of our operations. And we manufacture that into a feed, and it has a certain calorie count, right? So we know how many calories we want to give an animal so it's going to be productive and it's going to be healthy and it's going to grow. And so in that process, the animal doesn't use all the energy, just like we don't use all the energy in what we consume. And so the remainder of that energy is in the manure that's captured and so forth. So that energy in the manure is exactly what we're trying to extract. It's bought and paid for energy in the form of feedstuffs, goes through the animal, it's captured in a digester or a covered lagoon. Bacteria digest those solids, and a byproduct of that is biogas. That's 65% methane, it's 30% CO2. It's 4% water, so it's not a bunch of, if you're looking at regular natural gas, there's a lot of petroleum products. There can be nothing in it that wasn't in the feed to begin with, is my point. But that biogas is captured in a digester or a covered lagoon, and then in our model, that gas is routed to a central point where it's cleaned of CO2 and water, any nitrogen compounds, and it's made into 99% pure natural gas that is then inserted into the natural gas pipeline as renewable,
your industry.
As renewable natural gas.
That's right.
So when you get that back into the gas side of the house, Dominion Gas says, wow, you know, we've got a whole nother line here. We don't have to worry about doing more fracking in Virginia or Pennsylvania.
Well, you know, the great thing about it is once it's on that network, it can go anywhere. You know, it can be sold here in North Carolina. It can be transported out to California for the transportation market, which is something that
does it just blend with the gas that's already there? I mean, you don't have to have a separate.
Absolutely. The great thing about this, and Kraig alluded to it, what goes in is what comes out. It's very pure. It's very consistent. So once we upgraded it, you can't tell the difference. If you know it's not colored different, it's not anything anything different than that regular CH4 compound that you're getting from a shale formation or any other source of natural gas.
Can you transport it by truck?
You can. Yes, we actually do transport gas in northern Missouri at some of our farms. We clean that gas, we put it in tube trailers, and we haul it to another farm to be injected. It can be just like LP. It'd be a great example. You know, what I was going to follow up on is we're big users of natural gas. And so in our feed mills and other facilities, our processing plants, we want to make sure we have good natural gas. We look at folks like Dominion and Piedmont Natural Gas here in our area and say, hey, we want a good, reliable, clean source of natural gas to fuel our operations. So I also want to put in this, it's the gas company that puts the requirements on how pure the gas needs to be to get into their pipeline. If it doesn't meet those specifications, they're not going to take it. And so part of the cost we're talking about here in cleaning this gas is to make sure it meets the requirements of the natural gas company and ultimately the consumers of that gas down the road.
And the important part of that is, you know, that's so we're making sure that our customers are having safe, consistent experience with their gas. You know, you want the same BTU level, the same heat content is what that represents, so that when Kraig's running his feed mill, he knows it's going to run like it's supposed to. When you have your thermostat set right, it's keeping the temperature there, or when you're cooking something, you know how your stove's going to behave.
So one thing that Ryan mentioned earlier was, you know, this gas could be sold into California. We're actually selling quite a bit of our gas in northern Missouri and in Utah into California's transportation market, where they want compressed natural gas, renewable compressed natural gas, to run their fleets in California and reduce their carbon footprint. And so they're a very good market for this gas. But when you talk about why renewable natural gas versus electricity, that conversation kind of brings you to the why, and that is there's multiple markets. And so if I produce an electron or electricity, I have to put it on the line right there where I'm at, and I may only have myself and the power company as a customer. When I produce renewable natural gas, I have a multitude of customers. I can sell it to the utility, gas utility, electrical utility. I can sell it to California. I can sell it to third parties that own a company and want renewable natural gas. Once I put it in that pipeline, I have the opportunity to sell it almost anywhere in the country to any potential customer.
This energy source, just in our conversation today, we've talked about a number of connections. As people hear this show, there's going to be conversations, and there's going to be other things come forward that touches on what you just said, Greg. These other connections that it can be used for. We really don't know all the potential benefits that could be used.
Well, I think something I want folks to take away from this, if you will, is that, customers want renewable energy, and Kraig kind of alluded to this before. Different people have different views on that take, but the beauty here for growers and members of the community down here in this part of the state is you have an economic opportunity to take advantage of that demand. Mm-hmm. And renewable natural gas gives you the optionality to take a homegrown product and sell it to California, or sell it to Duke Energy, or sell it to a voluntary customer here that's willing to pay a premium for a product that's grown right here in North Carolina.
Any things that, I'd be willing to bet probably within the next week, as soon as this show gets out and gets into a bigger market and people start hearing this, I'm probably going to get some input with some negatives. Do you see any specific thing that folks can hit on? I don't see any woodpeckers or owls anywhere that we're going to bother or anything of that nature. Is there something we may be missing somewhere?
I personally don't know what that would be. I personally look at this as a classic win-win-win scenario. Mm-hmm. As you've talked about, I'm from this area. I grew up here. My parents still live less than 5 minutes from where we're doing this interview. Mm-hmm. I've lived here my whole life. It's very important to me, and my job for years has been to make sure that our industry and our company abides by and fulfills our obligations with regards to the environment. And I've looked at these opportunities for years, and I think we finally hit on one that absolutely I think is something we can expand on and is going to work. And I'm very confident in that. I think, as you allude to, as with anything, people are going to have concerns. Sure. One of the reasons for the meeting on the 15th, if you have concerns, we want to hear what they are. But as we look through this, we feel like it is a win-win-win situation, and I'm not sure what those objections could be at this point.
So to farmers out there that's hearing today, that's got operations, hog operations particularly, because the slurry actually works better than maybe a chicken operation, but for right now, their question would be, and I think you've already answered it, there can be adaptive things done to their existing lagoons. There also is a process of taking it out of that lagoon and putting it into an adjacent facility that has a new construction for processing that.
Yep, there's an option to build a new digester. Yep. That would be mixed and would be the place the manure would go first and then back to their existing lagoons, or cover their existing lagoons. Either is an option, and we would have the financials to be able to show them either way. But at the end of the day, there is optionality in there, and it's not a requirement that farmers do it. I've had that question. Mm-hmm. Do we? Sure. We've heard your announcement. Do we? No. At the end of the day, it's our obligation to bring a financial return that makes sense for them, and to make sure that they're part of that financial return, and that they have the economics that incent them to participate.
Safe, sound, and financially feasible comes to mind. Does all those words fit?
I think that's a great way to describe it. We've said it several times, but I'll say it again. Smithfield and Dominion with Align RNG are extremely excited to partner with the growers here in Eastern North Carolina to create this product. There's a huge amount of demand. It's increasing every day. We're hearing more and more about it. It's good for the environment. It's good for the community, and like Kraig said, it's a win all around.
So we're coming down to closure here, so I want to give you about 30, 45 seconds for wrap up, and I'll start with either one of you who wants to go first.
I'll be glad to start. I just look forward to being able to engage more farmers and more people in the community about what we're doing. I'm very excited about it. I've been working on this my entire career, and I know I'm fairly young, but I started when I was fairly young. Mm-hmm. So I've been in this business for 26 years. It's the most exciting thing I've been involved in that time frame. I think as we start talking about this, these type of projects to me are like mom and apple pie. I don't know how you could not like them. I think at the end of the day, I look forward to explaining that and getting out to talking folks, whether it's a farmer that we would like to be a part of one of our projects, or a landowner that we might need to talk with about an easement for a gathering pipeline. I look forward to having those conversations and talking about these projects and what they mean to this community that I grew up in.
About 30 seconds.
we're just really excited to be part of this. As I've said, our customers are interested in new products, sustainable products, and we feel like this is one of the best out there. In addition, we're honored to partner with Smithfield. They're the best in the business when it comes to agriculture. We think we're pretty good at energy, and we think this partnership, along with the growers, can really make a difference. And so, just excited to be here. Look forward to seeing folks on the 15th.
Absolutely. You got any questions? That's August 15th, Sampson Agri Exhibition Center in Clinton, North Carolina. It's just what is it? Just southeast there of Warsaw, we say.
I think it would be directly west of Warsaw.
It could be directly west.
I don't know where you come from.
Depending on how you turn it.
When I go home, I'm going east.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for being with us today. We look forward to seeing you again next week right here at Star Communications, WCLN Radio. And as we always say, as we close, may God bless.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of We Should Know with host J.W. Simmons. If you have a question, comment, or suggestion regarding this or any episode, please send your emails to weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. And remember to tune in every Tuesday at 2:30 for another informative episode of We Should Know.